Morning, Hanshi. How are you today?
Pretty good. Yes, I'm looking forward to having a chat with you.
Awesome. So, a big question I've been wanting to ask is, do you feel goals are critical to success, or what do you feel is most critical to success in your eyes?
Yeah, well, what is success really? Success is about achieving. So what is your objectives? Think about your objectives. Are your objectives about material things? Are your objectives about physical things? So it depends on your objectives. Now, as human beings, we have different objectives. Mine is a spiritual objective. So I work towards developing my spirituality to understand life on a deeper level. So, people with physical objectives or objectives to be rich and powerful or have a relationship, that's fine. We need to be thinking more deeply about why you need to achieve certain objectives. So if it's job related, for instance, we work on becoming better at our jobs, right? Now, when the heart is involved in anything that we do, of course we're going to be reaching success. Success has no limit. Success goes on forever. How much can you say is you've reached the end of your success? There's no limit to it. You keep going. So the same with spirituality. Spirituality to me is, as I'm developing it and growing in this knowledge, I'm reaching higher levels of attainment. I have the experiences and I say, wow. So I hope I'm answering your question and you're happy with it. So I think really it depends on you and what you want to achieve in life. So human beings are three-dimensional, right? We have the physical body, we have the mind, which is the second level, and the spiritual, which is the third. So we also have within the spiritual limits different levels of spirituality, which leads us to different dimensional planes of existences. So we can live on a very limited level of spirituality, like people do in terms of religions. They have a particular view, a particular point and they keep to that. But that's okay. But I say to everybody, get out of the box, because there's far greater things in life than you understand.
Very interesting. Do you feel part of success, I think you mentioned the journey in there at some point. Do you feel success has got a lot to do with being present and enjoying what you're doing in the present moment?
You got to love what you're doing.
Yeah.
Love is the key. When you love what you're doing, it gets you to the highest levels of attainment. For instance, I'll give you a little example. When I was in high school, I had a teacher called Mr. Kassenji, who was a maths teacher. And he would come into the class and have fun with us and teach us maths from a different level. He'd get out the textbooks and he'd say, okay, can everybody open to page 281 on the textbook? So we'd all open it up, and Mr. Kassenji wouldn't have a textbook in front of him. Then he will say, on the top of the page is the theory of, say, Pythagoras. And he would tell us this. And no book. And he would read line after line. We used to wonder, how does he read it? Then he'll go to 286 and he said, well, this is your first question. And he would read something and he's got no book in front of us. And that in itself used to be amazing. This man knew the entire book without even looking at the book. So that sent a kind of curiosity in us. How is it that he can do this without a book? Can we do it? Can we reach this kind of success? So And he would teach us maths in such a simple way. He would break it down to its lowest element and teach us from ground level. Now, in my karate that I teach, I do the same thing. In spirituality that I share, I do the same thing. I break it down to its lowest component and teach it from that level. And I do it with humor. I do it with fun. I do it with laughter. Even my karate classes, my students laugh and they have fun. And what a great way of learning. So we can achieve levels of success greater than we can imagine if we love what we do and we have fun with it.
I just wish I had a maths teacher that was like that. To be honest. So that brings on to another question I'm going to ask you. So one thing I struggle with sometimes, I feel like I'm a bit too serious about things. But I mean, do you believe, obviously, for certain things we have to be serious about, like, you know, spiritual growth, physical growth, emotional growth, and that? But I guess we still need to bring that element of fun into it, because really, what's the point of doing it if it's not fun and full of love? What's your take on that?
Yeah. Well, we are all spiritual beings on a divine journey. Or we can turn that around. We're all divine beings on a spiritual journey, right? Every one of us, including the trees, including the ants and the bees, all the animals that are on the planet, every single creature, living or what appears non-living, is also on a journey. And we're not alone in this journey, right? So we're all growing to higher levels of attainment, spiritual attainment. So life is a journey. And certain things we have to take seriously. The seriousness is realizing that we are spiritual beings for a purpose of discovering ourselves. So we set out on a journey. We're never born. We will never die. We will live forever as we've existed forever. This is the bottom line. But at this stage of life, we don't know where we are. We don't know about our journey because ignorance was born in our minds. When the body has taken birth, so is the mind. The mind's taken birth. The mind is new. The soul is not new. The Atma is not new. But the life in this body has no age. But the physical body has an age. The mind as a soul has an age. So during the course of our existence, we have to be serious in learning to discover ourselves. This is the serious part of life.
That brings on to, I guess, another question. Do you think one of the biggest realizations a human being can have to help live their life and be fulfilled in life is to realize they are a spiritual, divine being having a human experience? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes. I think life is a wasted life. You know, you live a life on the planet and you have no interest in anything but just living, eating, drinking, sleeping. To me, it's like a wasted life. And when the time is up, you leave, only to be told you should have spent more time in learning and discovering yourself. And then you come back.
Yep.
You come back to discover your life. And what happens? You go through the same pattern again. You have a repeated life in another body, and it's continuous. But if you have an inquiry within yourself, what is the purpose of life? Why am I here? What is this journey about? You are guided a little. And when you leave your body, they say, well, you're on the right path. Now, when you take birth, you will be taking birth on a higher platform. a better informed being, and you come back and you learn more, and then the journey becomes more interesting. So we have to be more serious that life is not just living temporarily. Life is for discovering yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. And I guess one thing I've always wondered is with the cycle of reincarnation and whatnot, if you're ultimately given a path, a journey prior to you being born, what are your thoughts on you actually being born into a human body? Why can't we remember that? What's the reasoning behind it almost being wiped? I never understood that. That's a big question.
That's a beautiful question. A lot of people said, "Oh, I can't remember my previous life. How can it be true?" Now, assuming that you were a mass murderer in a previous life, would you like to remember that?
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Right? Yeah. If you had done incorrect things to other human beings, would you like to remember that? No. So why is it some people remember and some people don't remember? Now, the divine has protected us. The universe has protected us from what we were in a previous incarnation. So when the soul is born in a new body, there's a blockage of your previous consciousness. But through spirituality and through SMA, you discover, and through meditation practices that I teach in SMA, you are able to regress and remember all the nice things that you've done. But it's also a preventative technique that you don't remember the bad things that you've done, but you will remember the good things that you've done in a previous life. So one of my regressions that I've done, I was Chinese in a particular life and they put me to death. I saw myself.
Jeez.
Yep. I saw myself being carried on a standard, remembering the place that I was in. They didn't like my policies and they decapitated me. Now,
it's not funny, but you can't help.
Yeah, well, no. They put me to death, but that's okay. But my goodness, in that life, because of the policies that I've chosen to do good work, carried me into the next life, into a better life. But the death itself, now what has happened to those people that have harmed me? They've suffered. When they took birth, they suffered immensely for what they've done. So the universe never forgets. They probably don't remember what they've done to somebody else, but I know from my learnings that those souls that harm other people go through suffering. I'm not saying that everybody on the planet suffers because of previous life. There are accidents in nature, things happen, but the majority of people go through what they go through because of a previous wrongs that they've done. But some people are able to remember and they only remember the good things. So I am lucky. I'm lucky in the fact that I can remember some of my lives, and it has informed me that I need to get better in this lifetime.
If you don't mind sharing, you mentioned in SMA there's a couple of meditations for regression. Do you mind sharing maybe just a little section of one of those, or is that something you're comfortable to do? Or?
I'm happy to share, but I don't want to take away the course of SMA.
I wasn't implying that, but just maybe a little snippet.
Yeah, well, we can do a cleansing meditation, right? Now, we've got a cleansing meditation that Kwa had done, made it into a beautiful video that we can probably share with people. Now, that cleansing meditation is about removing all the muck from your system, right? So what it does is it removes all the negative energy in your body. In your physical body, it removes all the negative energy. In your emotional body, it removes all the negative energy in your mind and your soul, right? So it cleanses you. So this meditation that I do, I lead the spiritual aspirants to purify themselves and be clean. So when that happens, when they clean themselves, they are able to start afresh from that point on. So all that accumulated energy of negativity from previous experiences are gone. It disappears into the ether, right? It doesn't belong to the spiritual aspirant. So they are able to grow. So I do this meditation as in part of SMA, so that the spiritual aspirants that come to me for their SMA courses can free themselves from all the negativity.
Leads nicely onto the next question I was going to ask you. How do you feel, or what, I guess essentially the best way to manage emotions? What are your thoughts on that?
The emotional body is to keep us grounded on the planet. The emotional body is a body that I call the attachment body. Right, so we think about my house, my car, my money, my parents, my sister, my brother. Everything is mine. How can you have freedom, real freedom, if you're attached to something? So emotion is created so that we can live on this planet. But if we allow emotion to become part of us, we're not free. We suffer. So when your emotion, when somebody close to you, for instance, passes away, we are torn apart. Oh, I can't believe, this relative of mine is just gone. So what happens is a lot of suffering. But if you understand the journey of life and you understand what happens to the soul after death, really understand it, and not just say, oh, that person has gone to heaven or hell. It's not as simple as that. People don't just go to heaven or hell when they pass away. A lot of things happen in the interim. So if we become attached to that person, we suffer. So my feeling is, of course, we must be sorry, we must be sad, but we mustn't feel it's the end of the earth. It's the end of our lives. Somebody has died. I've witnessed a lot of people standing at the coffin and pleading with the divine and saying, oh, take me instead of this person. How many times have you heard that? Take me, don't let this person go.
Yep.
But it's too late. I heard a young man not so long ago who says, God, why did you take mom? Why didn't you take me instead of mom? Was he really thinking about what he was saying? Everybody has a journey, and when it's their time to go, it's their time to go. And all the relatives that we have around us presently will not be the relatives in the next life. We'll have different relatives. So in one lifetime we are born Chinese, in another lifetime we're born Indian, in another lifetime we're born in Europe, or whatever. So the soul has no race. It's only the body has a race. And we're born into different religions or no religions. It depends on the soul's journey. So don't be caught up by religion. Don't be caught up by relatives. Don't be caught up by wants, and be free of emotions.
So more of an observation of life.
Observe life. That's what we're here to do, observe life and grow. So reach the highest level of understanding, spend time in discovery.
Yeah, one thing for myself recently, I've been definitely able to detach from my emotions a lot better and observe, especially with what's going on at the moment in the world. The way I see it is human beings are supposed to be going through all this stuff right now for whatever reason. Do you feel, one thing I've been trying to do recently is trying to be, fearless essentially, trying to, whenever I feel fear, go and do it. It's like that corny kind of catchphrase, feel the fear and do it anyway. So do you feel that, what are your thoughts on, fear only really being present as a fear of death essentially, and fear is almost like a human-made concoction? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, people have fear of death because they don't understand the journey. If you understood the journey, you wouldn't have fear of death. Fear of death is fear of not you dying. It's only the body dying. The body dies on death. So if you understand that you are an entity within the body, and it's only the body that's dying, you don't have fear of dying. If you believe you are the body, then of course fear of death is there. Right? Coming back to your previous question on emotion, I just gave it a bit more thought. That we need to remove this emotional feeling that everything belongs to us. Nothing belongs to us. Nothing belongs to us. So if you really believe something belongs to you, then you're allowed to take it with you when you leave. So don't be attached, because attachment brings pain.
In terms of managing thought processes and whatnot, what are your thoughts on that? I found within myself that I used to get a lot of negative thoughts, and gradually there were, probably about 2-3 years ago, there was a flick of the switch and the negative thoughts started to go into positive thoughts, or pure, maybe more pure thoughts per se. Occasionally I still get, negative and, self-defeating thoughts, but it's definitely changed now. Do you feel that it's essentially removing conditioning from how we've been raised as human beings and moving into more of a love and pure vibration that maybe can take place over time? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Negative thoughts and positive thoughts.
Or pure thoughts, or whatever your take is.
Yeah, well, there's 3 levels of energy.
Yeah.
Right? Kwai is a perfect example here. He went through reading his book, such brave parents he had, such brave parents, they've come from so much a struggle and made success. Kwai himself went through enormous pain, enormous suffering, but he came out of that. And you see Kwai today with so much success. He's an amazing guy, as I said in one of my introductions of his book, because he's a pure thinking guy. Now you have 3 forms of energy. You have the positive, you have the negative, and you have the pure. Pure is the pinnacle. Pure is the top of the triangle. The positive and negative is at the bottom. When positive happens or negative happens, there's reaction. There's always reaction. When you do positive things, you get rewarded. When you do negative things, you get harmed. But when you do pure things, nothing happens to you. But what happens is the universe becomes your servant, because it's like you've done something towards humanity, towards nature, so the universe is kind of happy with this and will bestow you with blessings. That's how it works. So always work from pure thinking, right? Don't do it because you want a reward. Don't do bad things to others because you will suffer. Do pure thoughts with no other intention but goodness. Only goodness. I'm doing it because I want to be a good person. I want to do the best I can for whatever I'm doing. Whether it's work-related, whether it's home-related, whether it's out in the community and you see somebody suffering, just go and assist them if you have to, if there's a need to. This is pure. Don't do it because, that person can do something for me later. This is incorrect thinking.
Yeah. It's not the nicest thing to do.
Yeah.
Just help someone out because you want something in return. Yeah, it's definitely not very nice. Do you feel over time that becomes your nature, essentially? You come out of purity over time and just
absolutely.
Just a habit, essentially.
Your nature becomes pure. There's no feeling of negativity. There's no feeling of positiveness. You're just doing it from pure thinking. I remember the one lady that came to me once and she said, I heard about you. And I said, I hope it's all good. And she said, Yes, that's why I'm here today. She says, I've got nothing. Can you please assist us? So my students and I got together and we helped this lady out. We managed to get her house, 6 months of groceries, provided everything that she needed. Now, we didn't do it because we can, publish this and tell everybody, look at what a great karate school we are. No, we did it out of just pure love. Pure love. We just did it because there was a need to do it. So it's important that we respond whenever people are in need, whenever there's challenges. We just respond and help them. But at the same time, let me go a little bit further and say that too much of compassion is no good. Too much of tolerance is no good. So there must be a limit to your compassion. If you give a beggar all your money, you become the beggar and they become wealthy. So
it's a good analogy.
There's a limit to everything. Everything has a limit. We have to be limited in our compassion. We have to be limited in our tolerance. Why is defense so important? Because there are aggressive human beings out there that can harm you, right? But you don't overdo your defense, right? So everything in moderation, even defense, even compassion and tolerance, everything in moderation.
Most self-development or spiritual books I've read in the past haven't really talked much about purity, actually. There's been a couple here and there, and that's what I found in SMA. I was talking to you earlier, one of the biggest things I've learned is the love vibration and purity and all that. And myself, I'm just trying to come out of that pure state a lot more now, which is really good, and not wanting something in return, as you said. Earlier you mentioned how the universe doesn't forget, or something along those lines, what you do and whatnot. So would you be able to enlighten us?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Absolutely. It's a pleasure to do this. Now, there's a thing called the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records is something that is recorded in the universe of every single action we do. Every single action. The tiniest of action is recorded. So even today's conversation is totally recorded in the universe. Okay. Now, why is it recorded? It's recorded so it can be played back to you, to see you, and you see you when you leave this body. Everything is recorded. Nothing escapes the universe. There's invisible forces around us. Even while we're sitting here, there's angels around us watching and observing. We can't see them because we don't have beyond third dimensional view. But there's 26 dimensional planes of existences. So how finite are these beings that are around us, that they can see us in full vision and we can't see them? So like that, the universe records every single detail of everything that we do. Nothing passes the universe. You can't escape. You cannot escape. So the reason why it is all recorded is not for the universe or anybody else to learn the lessons, but for you to learn the lesson. That one day it'll be shown to you that this is what you did in a particular day. This is what you did. This is what you said. This is how you reacted, so that you learn in your consciousness to prepare you for a future life. When you take birth as a human again, that these are the things you don't do. It's buried into your superconsciousness, and it'll always be there, and it'll be a reminder for you to not be the way you were previously.